The bell above the glass door didn't chime, it warned. Every time it rang, it signaled another body shuffling into the suffocating, fluorescent glare of the convenience store. I stood behind the register, drowning in a red polyester uniform that always smelled faintly of burnt coffee and industrial bleach. Behind me, the wall of refrigerators hummed a flat mechanical drone that only made the silence in the room feel heavier. It wasn't a peaceful silence. It was the kind of quiet that pressed against your lungs, demanding you shrink yourself to fit inside it. Customers moved through the aisles with blank, exhausted faces. My coworkers stocked shelves without a word. For someone carrying anxiety, PTSD, and depression like stones in my pockets, that kind of sterile quiet is unbearable. My emotions have always lived right at the surface, ready to spill over. When the air gets too heavy, my instinct is to break it. Humor, specifically the dark, jagged kind, has never been cruelty for me. It is a shield. It is survival. But in that store, joy was contraband. It happened on a Tuesday morning. One of my regulars came to the counter. He was an older gentleman, slow-moving and kind, who always bought a black coffee and a handful of scratch-offs. He looked at me when he spoke, which was a rarity. Most people just stared at the card reader. The silence around us was particularly crushing that day, thick and unyielding. As I handed him his change, the words just slipped out of my mouth, entirely unplanned. "Laughter is the Antichrist," I said, my voice cutting through the hum of the fridges. "No one does that around here." It wasn't meant to be sharp, it was just an observation of the absurd reality we were standing in. To my relief, the older man didn't flinch. The corners of his eyes crinkled and he chuckled softly. He didn't correct me. He didn't tell me to smile. He just took his coffee and walked out into the morning. For a brief, fleeting second, I felt entirely seen. My manager, however, saw things differently. A few days later, I came in for my shift. My car had broken down that morning, starting the day off with a spike of panic, but I had called it in and showed up as fast as I could. I was told we needed to go over what I missed from a weekend team meeting. I walked toward the back office expecting a rundown of new policies or lottery protocols. Instead, I walked into an ambush. The back office was little more than a closet with a desk. She was waiting for me. She had a single piece of paper in her hand, smoothing it flat against the desk as if it were a sacred text. Her eyes were sharp, locked onto me. "This isn't just about the meeting," she said. Her voice was steady, but the air in the room instantly turned hostile. And then she began to read. It wasn't a list of missed tasks. It was a list of my flaws. She read off bullet points detailing how I didn't measure up, how my presence made people uncomfortable, how my conduct and my jokes were unbearable. Line after clinical line, she recited my humanity back to me as if it were a list of criminal offenses. I sat there in total silence. I folded my hands so tightly in my lap that my knuckles turned white. My chest burned. I have always known when someone doesn't like me, and as she read, the truth of the situation crystallized. This wasn't about my speed at the register. It wasn't about the car breaking down. It wasn't even about the Antichrist joke. It was about *me*. I didn't play the politics of the break room. I didn't mold myself into a quiet, compliant shape just to make management feel powerful. My honesty and my refusal to blend in unsettled her. People who have dimmed their own light are always offended by someone who refuses to turn theirs off. She sat across from me, convinced she was tearing me down. But as I listened to her list, the panic in my chest was suddenly replaced by a cold, absolute clarity. I will never belong here, I realized, and thank God for that. They lure you into jobs like that with the promise of a steady paycheck and a team environment. But the reality is a trap. They want obedience. They want a smile on command and silence where you have a voice. They want you to believe that if you just work harder, if you just swallow your panic attacks and hide your depression, you will eventually be enough. The true trap isn't the low pay. It's the belief they plant in your head that leaving is a failure. When I finally walked out of that store for the last time, it didn't feel like a movie. It felt terrifying. For weeks my pride screamed at me that I was weak, that walking away meant they had won. I carried the weight of her list, replaying the judgment in her eyes, wondering if I could have just tried a little harder to fit in. But distance brings the truth into focus. I didn't leave because I failed. I left because I finally refused to shrink. I took a deep breath of air that didn't smell like bleach and realized that quitting a system designed to break you is not a defeat. It is a jailbreak. To anyone standing in a room where the silence is suffocating, wondering if you are too much, You are not the problem. A place that kills joy is not a place worthy of your spirit. Being misunderstood doesn't make you broken. It just means you are speaking a language of survival that cowards aren't brave enough to hear. Quitting is not giving up, it is choosing yourself. I escaped the trap, and as long as I keep laughing, no matter how dark or crooked the words come out, I know I've already won.